Today I'm going to be replacing the bushings on my rear springs in my '01 Dodge Cummins. I'm going to be putting these energy suspension bushings in. This will be the second time I've done it. The first time I did it, the truck had about 220, 230 miles. Now it has over 400, and they're wore out again. The symptoms to it being wore out is it feels like your truck's swaying all over the road, like there's something in the front end. But if your front end's tight, the odds are your bushings are worn out. If you do towing and carry heavy stuff like I do, they don't seem to last. So I'm going to try these energy suspension ones. Last time I did it, they weren't available for my springs, for 3-inch springs. I put the Teflon in the front, upper and lower control arms, and they're still good. So anyway, we'll see what happens there, but I'm going to show you how to do it without a press, because these bushings do need to be pressed in and out. You know, last time I took my springs to a machine shop and had them press them for me. Taking both springs out and then getting the axle back in is a real bear. This stuff is heavy. It's easier if you can do one at a time, so I'm going to show you how you can do it one spring at a time. Keeps the axle lined up, and with, you know, basic tools. So I got my 2 bolts removed. There's my front one. On my spring shackle in the back, it's removed. All I have to do is remove the bolts from my U-joints holding my axle, and the springs are loose. It's not a lot of work to get them loose, but they are heavy. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish that, and I'll show you what's next. So here it is, the spring's out. Just take note of how you took it out. There's like a block that goes down here, and your U-bolts and what have you fit in there. The pins have hexed end on them, and they also have a star bit, so you can hold it from either end to get the nut off if it starts turning. And you just have to get the springs equalized so there's no weight pushing down or up, and you can just tap the pins out. It pays. The first thing I do is get the truck up on some nice solid stands, and it pays to have at least 2 jacks or 3. One to hold the axle, which I have one holding the axle up. One to support the spring, because these springs are heavy. I actually have 2 of these. They're leveling jacks off of a RV camper. They work great for stuff like this. And you can support the spring, especially when you go to put it back on, to get the holes lined up right. Just one other note, there's a bit of bad news. This side's relatively easy. The pins knock right out. You can get to them from the other side, shove them back in. The other side, the fuel tank's in the way. So what you have to do is either drop the entire fuel tank, which makes it easy to get to the bolt, or you can just drop the back of it, is what I did. It still is a pain to get that one front bolt back in because it hits the fuel tank. But I did it that way, just dropping the back tank. You know, if you want to make your life a little bit easier, drop the whole tank. Just depends on how full it is, how much trouble it's going to be. Anyway, let's move on to the bushings and the springs. So here's what I do to get them out. A simple wheel puller, bolted on there. I stuck a little socket in there to catch the metal bushing and impact, and they'll drive right out. Even if you have a press, this is a 2-man job holding these springs up to press them out. This way you can do it as a 1-man job, but it does work. Here, see if I can show you how it drives out. Pushes it right out. I need both hands at the moment, so I can't film. But you just repeat this on all 3 of them and go from there. So my spring shackle actually kind of made a liar out of me. It wouldn't push out. All I ended up doing was driving out the metal bushing. So the second option is to burn it out. Now also the spring shackles have this inside of it, and the only way that thing's coming out is either you have to cut it. I mean, you could take a saw and cut it or whatever, and then bend it a little bit in and then knock it out with a hammer and a chisel. You have to remove that for your polyurethane for the energy suspension bushings. If you go back with rubber bushings, well, you just buy new shackles. They don't replace the bushings in those. But anyway, I got that out. I like to leave it attached to the spring, so I just got some support to hammer on and stuff like that instead of trying to hold the thing in your hand. That's where we're at. Next thing you got to do is clean up all inside here. I just use air tool. I found these things for head port and polishing, a little sandpaper on them. They're great for stuff like this. Next thing I'm going to try to do, once you push these bushings in, there's a little bit of a gap in the middle. And they give you really nice grease with them. But what I'm going to do is, if you can see there, let's see, I drilled a hole in the end, and I'm going to go ahead and stick this grease fitting in there. Just so I can shoot some grease in there about once a year, hopefully let them last longer. There's nothing advising that, and I've never seen anybody doing it, but you know, grease will help things last longer. If it gets dried out, they're obviously going to wear faster. That's my theory and thinking anyway. Can't hurt anything. Anyways, let me clean it up, put the fittings in, and we'll move on from there. So I cleaned everything up. Looks good inside. Then they give you this real thick white gooey grease. I grease up everything real good. Start them in by hand. Then I got a piece of all thread here. This is 5/8 all thread. I think I got some just some nuts and washers to hold to make a space. Stick it through. Stick me a big washer on the other end. Nut. And then I just take an impact and drive them on in. So there it is, drove in all nice and tight. Takes 2 seconds with an impact. You merely back the nuts off, take it out. So there it is with the bushings and everything. One thing I found is these, they don't want to slide on very easy. What I do is I just bend it out a little bit, just a little bit, and once you put those bolts are big and strong enough, once you tighten it up, it'll slam it back together. I also don't make this tight until after I put everything back on the truck. That way I can move things up easier, give me some movement. So here it is, all bolted back in place. It's the way I look at it. I got spring bushings, I got new shocks, I got new brakes. All this for a cost to me of about $300. If you took it to a local shop, I imagine it's at least $2,000 worth of work. You know, it's a weekend to do. That's not bad pay if you look at it that way. You know, if you don't have all the right kind of tools, you know, good time to invest. If you're mechanically inclined, and one-time pay for the tools. Anyway, take a look at my other videos. I have a lot of videos for Dodge Cummins, how to build your own compound turbos, how to install an external wastegate, and more. So subscribe and take a look at some other things. Thank you.